For today's topic is concerned, I I have choose the topic of design patterns, which I consider the most important topic, while which any software engineer or developer should know or understand while development of or in order to develop any kind of software application. So design patterns, what are design patterns and who have presented them, and what are the major advantages of design patterns? The design patterns are being presented by the four authors Eric, Rolf, Richard and John, and they have suggested the solution of major problems which are being faced by the developers over the years or software designers over the years, where they have suggested some solutions in the form of patterns or techniques, and they have actually suggested over 23 design techniques in order to resolve those issues. So these techniques helps us to resolve or to achieve us the major advantages of high cohesive and low coupled software application. Where we have application who is less coupled, we can add more functionality and remove functionality easily. Also, the application would be more stable and would have more common vocab, as in case of software developers would be working multiple regions, that would be more understandable in that case or in that scenario. So these design patterns are being classified on two major categories. So in the case of the first classification, the design patterns are being classified on the basis of how what kind of problems they are trying to resolve. Like they are trying to resolve the stable kind of problem or the compile time kind of problem, they would be considered or classified in the category of class patterns. And design patterns where the more of technique or resolution of those problems, where uh, object instantiation or dynamic kind of or runtime kind of problems are being resolved, those kind of design patterns are being classified in the object kind of patterns. And the other category where the design patterns are being classified as creational, structural and behavioral design patterns. These are the design patterns. In the kind of creational design patterns, the design patterns who have uh, object creation or instantiation at runtime, and those kind of design patterns would be classified in creational design patterns. And the behavioral design patterns are those design patterns where we have multiple classes are interacting with each other and asking for runtime communication or functionality. And lastly, the structural design patterns are those design patterns where the multiple classes are being composed to achieve single goal. So the few major design patterns which are frequently being used to resolve these issues are or can be seen on this screen. Like the creational design patterns include the singleton and factory method, and in these two design patterns, the singleton, as it is clear from the word singleton, that it resolves the issue of multiple instances and provides us a single instance or single gateway, and also provides us the facility to have a consistent data. Like in the case of while we are developing an application where the application is getting data from the server or the database, we need to have one single instance to communicate with the database or the server, so we can have a consistent data. In the case of factory method, the factory method provides us the facility to have a to decide on runtime which functionality or which method or instance needs to be created. So factory method is used on that on that kind of scenarios where we are not sure about the kind of functionality or instance we need at runtime, so we mm, use this kind of technique to resolve those kind of issues. So in the case of structural design patterns, the facade and decorator are the most frequently used design patterns. These design patterns are used to resolve the issue. Like the facade design pattern is being used where we have a complex relationship between multiple classes, and each class is instantiating the instance of other class at runtime. The facade design pattern provides us the facility to have an interface in between the client class and those components. So the facade interface would decide or would handle those complexities at runtime and would not worry the class of client. Whereas the decorator design pattern is involved where the multiple functionalities are being delegated to other classes, and each class in the hierarchy is delegating one additional functionality to the other class. So decorated design patterns decorates or delegates or adds functionality to other classes in the hierarchy to perform those functionalities. These kind of design patterns or techniques are being used to resolve the kind of issues we have been facing over the years in GUI related problems. Lastly, we have the behavioral design pattern. These design patterns are have two major design patterns like iterator and observer. Iterator is the most simplest design pattern, as we know that the design pattern or we can say the loops. As you can see the loops that the loops iterates or over the elements. So iterative design pattern provides us the facility to have to resolve the kind of problems which are being faced in the kind of where we want to iterate or loops over through different elements in the uh, dictionary in the collection. For example, the list where we want to add or remove multiple elements, the iterated design pattern or technique, we can consider the list as a iterated design pattern or technique. Lastly, we have observer design pattern or technique. This technique helps us to resolve the problem of notifying multiple classes or multiple views at a runtime. Like if we have received any kind of update from the database or server which we need to notify at runtime to all the users, the observer design pattern would help us in order to provide that notification to all the users or to all the classes or to all the subscribers, which we can consider this as a publish and subscribe design pattern. So these are the few major design patterns which we have discussed today. Thank you so much for listening. That's all.